Right, good morning, everybody. I'm delighted to be joined here today by Sam Howard. I think she is known by many, many people in the wholesale sector. But Sam, tell us your job title at Nestle and impressively how long you've been working in the sector.
I am the customer business manager and I work within wholesale and convenience. And I have been a business manager within the sector since 2013. But I was before that a field account manager in the sector, and I was also was learning since 2009. So I've been around for a while.
But what were you doing before for Nestle? What were you doing before that?
Okay, so a complete career change for me back in 2009. Before that, I worked in credit control in the finance sector, and I looked after wholesale customers, starting with Sterling, moving through to Landmark and into Best Way, and then today's as they were then.
So if we take all of that, and in terms of your experience in the wholesale sector, how many years in total is it approximately?
In total, 20 years. The first 4 years at Nestle, I wasn't doing wholesale, I was doing other things, but 20 years.
So you must, I'm assuming, enjoy working in this channel.
I love wholesale. I love everything about this channel. I love the passion behind it. I love the fact that the majority of the people within this channel, wholesalers and retailers alike, they own their own businesses. They have a real passion because they obviously have to, because it's their business. They're entrepreneurial. They can diversify so quickly. COVID is a real example of that. If I think about COVID and what happened then, and how we as a channel just diversified and changed and became just one of the most important parts of people's lives throughout COVID, I just think that's something to be so proud of, and anyone working in this industry is proud of that.
Well, yes, I mean, we've got many suppliers often kind of wholesale as the stepping stone onto other channels, but clearly that's not the case for you.
No, I can understand why a lot of suppliers think that is a stepping stone, because I think here in this channel we really do understand what it means to nurture relationships. And I think if you're someone learning how to be a salesperson, nurturing relationships has to be the very first thing you learn. So in some ways, I can see why suppliers would do that. But I don't want to work in an industry where it's so transactional. I like the idea of the relationship side of it, that building that longevity that you have in wholesale, and you can really have longevity in wholesale. If you think about some of the names that you and I both know very well, Tom, including my own line manager. They've been around for so many years, and their relationships with everybody in the industry is so great. And I can only aspire to that, to be that well known, that well thought of, and have that kind of reputation. Yeah, that's where my heart lies.
And 20 years in wholesale. So how has it changed in that period of time? And in what areas has it changed?
I think one of the biggest changes that we've seen probably in the last 10 years is the blurring of the lines between the channels. And we've talked about it a lot. We've seen, I think it started really, didn't it, with Tesco and Booker, but that's now moved into the whole Morrison's wholesale piece and the Co-op Nicer piece, and even I believe Best Way have now bought into Sainsbury's. The lines are so blurred, and I have seen that change. But I've also seen, and this is what gives me the passion for wholesale, I've seen the channel change with it, and I've seen the people in retail, particularly in the independent sector, which is where I've always worked. I've seen them diversify and move to be able to accommodate what we see going on with the mergers, and also what we see going on in the high street. 10 years ago, we didn't really have that many Sainsbury's locals and Tesco's expresses, but they're everywhere now. So to be able to be fluid and be able to change what your offering is, and really be that community hub, I think is the biggest change I've seen in wholesale in the last 10 years or so.
And it's interesting to see, I'm going to look at kind of the convenience sector. still 75% of convenience stores in the UK are independent. That's virtually not changed since a decade ago. So we kind of sometimes the headlines go towards the malts, but actually it's the independents who are holding their own and doing very well, which I guess you'd argue would be the same about wholesale as well. That actually there's been many rueful headlines about the death of wholesale and death in cash and carries, but 20 years on, robust, strong, £30 billion turnover per annum. There's a great future in wholesale, presumably.
And again, I think it comes down to that one thing that you cannot get from other channels, and it's relationship. It's the relationship between the wholesaler and the retailer. It's the relationship between the supplier who's able to go into the cash and carries and talk to retailers. It's all there. There's that whole 360 dimension of how we communicate and how we talk to the very end consumer, if you like. And I think that that's what keeps us on our toes. It's what keeps us successful as a channel.
So, and what kind of things have you seen? You've seen the main thing you've seen is the blurring of lines in the last 20 years between kind of the malts and wholesale. And I guess you might also kind of between food service and retail, that has blurred. How has the sector responded in terms of kind of digital and data and innovation? Do you think the sector has done a good job in this? Is there more to do? Is there more hard work to come?
I think it's still emerging within wholesale. I think we've come a long way, but I think we've still got work to do. I think that I think particularly with the independents, I think we need to be really, really on the front foot with this. I think that particularly in today's world, we do have a cost of living crisis. We do have energy going through the roof. We do need to be making sure that our independent retailers are stocking the right lines, are stocking lines that look at it from a category perspective rather than just a single POR perspective. I think that will help every retailer to be successful. And of course, that's what we all want. I think wholesalers are there. I think they are much more there than they were 5 years ago. I think everybody has embraced digital a lot more, probably because of COVID. I think that sort of stepped us on a lot. So I think that from if I think about wholesalers in general, I think they are much more digital savvy now than they were. I still think there's a little bit of work to do, however, when we get to the retail side of it. But I think we are embracing it, and I think we are working towards it. So we've got work to do, but it has moved on.
And you've talked about the relationship, which clearly comes across very strong, about the relationship which you personally and suppliers have with wholesalers. What more can suppliers, whether you're talking about kind of Nestle or whether you're talking about supplier community in general, what more do you think they can be doing to help the wholesale channel? And what are the good things suppliers are doing at the moment? And where is there a little bit more work required, do you think?
Well, I think, I'll touch on the price mark pack piece and the shared margin piece. I think we have to protect the channel that we're in. So as suppliers, we do need to look at what those margins look like. And I think that we have to be making sure that if there is a price increase, we're passing it on to the consumer rather than just to the wholesaler or the retailer. I think that's really strong. And I think I certainly know from conversations that we had last year and at the conference last year, I was able to come back to my business, and it was something we'd been talking about anyway, but I was able to come back to my business, and we were about to put through a cost price increase, which nobody wants to do, but we did. But we were able to influence our category to say, let's increase that margin a little bit there. And I think that those conversations should be happening across all suppliers. And I really don't think anyone should be trying to reduce margins. I really think that protects our retailers and our wholesalers and make sure that everybody's making a bit of money. But I think as well, we probably need to, and I'm guilty of it too, we probably need to be spending more time with our wholesalers, making sure that they're reaching the retailers. And I know that a lot of our wholesalers, they've got their own regional sales teams, and we need to be making sure as suppliers that we are really going through to those regional sales teams and really getting a point across, really making sure that our that the planograms that we have in place that are fair and equitable, obviously, but are also going to make as much money per category for our retailers as we can possibly get for them. Because most of the time when we look at any category, there is margin mix in there. And perhaps that's the next step we need to step on with the retailers to understand that margin mix, and to understand, yes, there's POR against every line, but if you stock this line, which is core, you'll make more cash margin. And if you stock this line, you'll make more POR. So I think there's probably just a bit of a step on there that we need to start thinking about.
Brilliant. And we've been in the sector for 20 years. We've had a little bit of look back. Now, looking forward, if I think about you and where you're going to be, with Nestle in 20 years' time, or where you see the wholesale sector, maybe not 20 years' time, but certainly for the next 5 years. Optimistic, excited, changeful. How do you see the next five years?
Tom, I'm just grateful you think I'm going to be here in 20 years' time. Do you know how old I am? No. I think that for me, I'm not going to say 20 years, so I'll start with me. But my next step, and the thing I'm working towards at the moment, is I'm going to be doing an awful lot of internal courses this year on coaching to get my coaching accreditation. Because what I want to be able to do is give something back, firstly to Nestle, who's given me a great career, but also to this channel, and to make sure that when we are coaching our future talents, that we are coaching them about this channel in the right way. Because I think the one thing that this channel love is longevity. And we need to make sure that we're coaching the people of our future leaders to understand, one, our channel, but two, to understand that longevity is important in our channel. So that's what I personally want to be looking at to do. That's my next move, which is in the short term. From a channel perspective, I think we'll still be very much here with bells on in the net for however long, because I think there will always be people that shop locally, and there will always be people that understand the value of community and understand the value that it's not all about price all of the time. And I think that they will also understand the value around what a retailer does within their community and that community standing. To have any community without a local shop would be a disaster. I really believe that. So I can see that it will continue. It will continue to evolve, and it will continue to be fluid. But that's the great thing about wholesale. It is fluid and it will evolve. And I think we will see more digital innovation. We will see more delivery as we get through this next cost of living crisis. We will revert back to where we were pre-COVID, and we will start to see people looking at more delivery options, and we will start to see that coming through to our local retail stores, because that's how we will diversify again, to ensure that we succeed and that we do continue to be one of the most relevant channels within our market.
That's brilliant. The question which I'm interested around is the sector's use of data. Is there more to be done in that field, do you think? Or do you think the sector is actually embracing data, embracing facts, making data-led decisions, planograms are right, decisions about investment is correct based on the right amount of data? Do you feel that as a sector we're doing everything we can be with data?
I think as a sector, we are probably as far as we can come along at this time. When I think about the different areas within this sector, and I think about bookers and the best ways, yeah, they're absolutely using data probably to its best advantages. When I think they're more around the independents, we don't necessarily have the right data from everybody. I think it would be, and I'll talk a minute with Unitas, because as you know that's where that's the CBN, that's the group, one of the groups that I look after. And I think about the data there, and it's still a little fragmented. And as much as we have tried to get on board with all the members with data, not every member is on board. And it would be really, really great if we could have that. And I know that's utopia, and I know that that probably isn't going to happen. But to get as much as we can in one place, to be able to make the right decisions for our buying groups, to me is that evolving that we still need to do.
Brilliant. And last question from me, it's been an absolutely brilliant interview. Last question from me is, who have been your biggest influences through your career? I think I can see £20 notes being shuffled across by brown envelopes over there.
Well, I'm going to tell you what the party line is here now, Tom. And I have been told to tell you that I have learned everything that I know from a certain Mr. Stocker. And that he is the god of wholesale.
I think in many ways he is.
He is. But seriously, if I think about what I've learned, you know, if I go right back to the beginning, when I first came into sales, I was an exec. And as an exec, you do all the back of house admin, and you look after the sort of sales financials, if you like. And Jason was my line manager and still is to this day. But Jason took me to every single meeting that he ever went to. And I sat there and probably only had 5 minutes input into that meeting, but I learned a lot. And that's where I learned about relationship. That's where I learned about the value of relationship in wholesale. And then if I step onwards, and then I went into field roles, and then I started going to conferences and starting to know people in the wider industry. And I can honestly say that there's 2 or 3 people that stick out in my mind and always will, as people who I've always looked how they've behaved, looked at their relationships within the industry, and have always aspired to be like them. One of them is Al Gunn. And I think we can all safely say that Al Gunn is such a big part of this industry.